Welcome to my channel. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you so much.
I was 3 weeks out from the happiest day of my life when my brother decided to blow it all up. My name's Spencer. I'm 32 years old, live in Colorado, and until recently, I thought my family, flawed as they were, would always have my back. I don't mean that in a corny, TV sitcom way. I just mean that no matter how much we bickered or disagreed, there were boundaries you didn't cross, lines you didn't even look at, especially not during your brother's wedding prep. Growing up, I was the steady sibling, not the golden child. That title belonged to my younger brother, Tyler, but the one who handled things. If something broke, I fixed it. If mom needed help with the taxes, I was her guy. When our dad passed away 5 years ago, I was the one who drove Tyler to the funeral because he'd gotten drunk the night before and left his car in a ditch. I didn't resent that. I really didn't. It was just the dynamic. Tyler messed up. I cleaned it up. Tyler is, well, complicated. He's 29, charming in that slippery, overconfident way that makes waitresses laugh at his bad jokes and gets him out of parking tickets. He was the kind of kid who skated through life on charisma alone. When we were younger, I used to envy him. How easily people gravitated toward him. How our mom always defended him, even when he was blatantly in the wrong. But somewhere along the way, that envy faded. I had my own path. I built a quiet, stable life. I worked in IT, bought a house, and 3 years ago, I met someone who made all of it feel like it meant something. Her name's Lila. We met at a coffee shop when I spilled an entire large mocha on her coat. I was mortified. She laughed. And from that moment on, she just got me. Lila is smart, grounded, and kind in a way that makes you believe people can still surprise you for the better. She works as a social worker and has this sixth sense for people. She reads them like open books. But when it came to Tyler, even she struggled. He was charming, sure, but there was always something off. Too much flattery. Too many lingering stares. Too many weirdly personal jokes he'd make when I wasn't around. Still, I never really questioned it. Not until the engagement. Tyler had this weird reaction when I told him I was going to propose. It wasn't overt, but I remember the way his smile faltered for a second before he slapped me on the back and said, "About time, man. Just don't blow it." At the time, I thought he was just being Tyler. But the seed was planted. Over the next year, things started piling up. Little things. Comments he'd make to Lila when they were alone, which she always told me about later. "You really think Spencer's the one?" he once asked her during a family barbecue while I was out grabbing more charcoal. Or the time he sent her a playlist, just for fun, with songs that were all breakup anthems. Lila showed me the messages each time, laughed them off, said, "Your brother's got issues," and we moved on. But the vibe kept getting weirder. At our engagement party, I found Tyler cornering Lila in the kitchen, whispering something. She looked uncomfortable. When I asked her about it later, she hesitated. He said, he used to have a crush on me. But it was nothing, just awkward timing. I wanted to confront him, but Lila begged me not to. It'll just create more drama. Let's not start something before the wedding. So I didn't. I let it slide, like I always did. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was assuming Tyler would know how to behave during the wedding planning process. He was supposed to be my best man. I figured, hey, maybe this is a chance for him to grow up, bond a little, do something selfless for once. But he was flaky from the start, showed up late to the tux fitting, forgot to send the RSVP reminders to the groomsmen, and made it all about him at the bachelor party. At one point during drinks, he loudly joked that Lila was way out of my league and that I must have blackmailed her or something. Everyone laughed. I did too, but it hit me in the gut. The final straw came 2.5 weeks before the wedding. I was at work, finishing up a client presentation, when my phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "Call me ASAP. It's about Lila." My stomach dropped. I called immediately, thinking maybe she'd been in an accident or gotten sick or something serious. But no. When he answered, his voice was calm. Too calm. "I wasn't going to tell you this, man," he began. "But I can't let you marry someone who's not being honest with you." I felt cold all over. "What are you talking about?" "She told me she has feelings for me," he said, almost regretfully. Said she was confused. Said she wasn't sure she could go through with the wedding. "She's been messaging me behind your back. I didn't want to hurt you, but you needed to know." I didn't speak for a few seconds. I couldn't. My brain was trying to wrap itself around what I'd just heard. I remember my hand gripping the phone tighter, my heartbeat spiking. "You're lying," I said quietly. He sighed. "I wish I was. I really do. But if I were you, I'd talk to her. Ask to see her phone. Look through the messages. You'll see for yourself." He hung up before I could respond. I just sat there, stunned. The office around me kept humming. People typing, phones ringing, but it all felt distant. Like I was underwater. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Could it be true? Had Lila been hiding something from me? Was there some part of her I hadn't seen? When I got home that night, she was on the couch watching reruns of The Office. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, babe. Everything okay?" I didn't answer right away. Just sat down and looked at her. Really looked at her. "Tyler called me," I said finally. "He told me you've been messaging him. That you have feelings for him." Lila blinked. And then she laughed. Not a little giggle, but a full, genuine, disbelieving laugh. "Are you serious?" "I need to know the truth," I said. My voice cracked. She stood up, walked over to me, and put her phone in my hands. "Check it yourself. All our messages. I've got nothing to hide." And I did. And what I found flipped everything on its head. Because she had been messaging him. But not in the way he claimed. The texts were all there. Every single one. "Hey, that joke you made at the dinner last night made me uncomfortable. Please stop. I'm with Spencer. I love him. This needs to stop. Do not message me again unless it's something related to the wedding. You're crossing the line." And the worst one, sent just 2 days before. "Tyler, if you ever imply again that I'm having second thoughts, I will tell Spencer everything you've been saying." I read through the whole thread, my hands shaking. She sat next to me the entire time, silent, letting me process. No pressure, no defensiveness, just quiet strength. When I looked at her, I felt like crying. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier," she said softly. "I thought if I ignored him, he'd stop. But he didn't. He got worse. And I didn't want to cause problems between you two." I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, hugged her, held on. And then, something flipped in me. Because this wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was betrayal, manipulation, a full-on attempt to destroy the one good thing in my life. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let Tyler walk away without consequences. I just didn't know yet how far it would go. But the opportunity presented itself in the most unexpected way. And that's when I invited his wife to lunch. I didn't sleep that night. Even after Lila and I talked it through, after I saw the texts, after she reassured me again and again that she loved me and had never, ever entertained Tyler's pathetic fantasy, I just lay there in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Something was broken. Not between us. Between me and my brother. And maybe, if I was being honest, it had always been broken. I just refused to look at it until now. The next morning, I sat in my car outside work for a solid 15 minutes before going in. I kept asking myself the same question. Why? Why would Tyler do this? Why now? Was he trying to sabotage the wedding because he couldn't stand to see me happy? Was it about Lila? Or was this just who he'd always been? And I was only now seeing it clearly? I didn't have an answer. But I did have a new sense of clarity. I was done playing the older brother who cleaned up his messes. Still, I didn't confront him. Not right away. I needed time. And more importantly, I needed a plan. Because if Tyler was willing to lie, manipulate, and spin that kind of story about his own brother's fiancée, then I had to assume there was more to uncover. The first sign that this was bigger than just an isolated incident came a few days later when my mom called. She didn't even say hello. "Spencer," she said, her voice tight. "Did you really accuse Tyler of trying to steal your fiancé?" I closed my eyes. "No, Mom. He told me she had feelings for him. I checked her messages. He's been harassing her for months." There was a long pause. "Tyler wouldn't do that," she said quietly. "He told me you've been paranoid, that you're projecting your own doubts onto him." I laughed, bitterly. He showed up uninvited to her work one day and waited outside just to walk her to her car. She told me after the fact because she didn't want to stir things up. "He's been sending her weird texts, making creepy comments, and you think I'm the problem?" "You've always been so serious," she snapped suddenly, and the shift stunned me. "Always overthinking everything. Maybe Lila's not as into you as you think. Maybe she just didn't want to hurt your feelings." There it was. The hammer. The same tone she used when we were kids and Tyler wrecked something, and somehow I ended up grounded. That old, familiar flavor of disappointment directed at the wrong son. "You're defending him?" I asked, my voice sharp. "He's your brother," she said. as if that was supposed to mean something now. And he's been really upset. You embarrassed him. You need to fix this before the wedding. The phone call ended with me saying something I hadn't said to her in years. I'm not asking for your approval anymore. And I don't need your help planning this wedding. It stung, but it was also freeing. I told Lila about the call. She just shook her head. I don't get it. Why does your mom always side with him? Because she always has, I said. And maybe she needs him to be the golden child. Otherwise, she'd have to look at everything she let slide. But the hits kept coming. That weekend, we had a family dinner planned, just a casual get-together at my mom's place with the excuse of celebrating the upcoming wedding. Lila didn't want to go. I didn't either. But I felt like I needed to be there. Needed to see how deep this ran. We arrived and were greeted by an awkward silence. Tyler was already there, sitting on the patio with a drink in hand, sunglasses on like he was auditioning for some reality show. His wife, Rachel, was beside him, smiling, oblivious. At least for now. I greeted her warmly. She hugged me and whispered, "I'm so happy for you too," like none of the chaos was happening. Either she didn't know, or she was pretending not to know. I couldn't tell which was worse. Dinner was strained. My mom barely looked at me. My aunt, who was always a little too cozy with Tyler, kept asking Lila if she was nervous to commit so young, even though we were both in our 30s. And Tyler? He spent the whole evening smugly sipping wine, cracking jokes about marriage. At one point, while Lila and Rachel were in the kitchen getting dessert, Tyler leaned across the table and said, "Still going through with it, huh?" I didn't answer. He smiled. "You're making a mistake. But hey, I'll be there. Front row, watching the train crash." And then, with a wink, "Unless she changes her mind before then." That's when I knew this wasn't just some awkward obsession. He wanted to wreck me, to humiliate me. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly across the floor, and excused myself. Lila followed me to the car, concerned. I told her what he said. She didn't even look shocked. Just angry. "We can't keep letting this slide," she said. "It's not just you anymore. He's messing with our life." And she was right. It wasn't about keeping the peace anymore. It was about drawing a line. The next morning, I sent Tyler a text. "You're no longer my best man. Don't contact Lila again." He replied instantly. "Wow, insecure much? She'll come around." That was it. That was the moment something inside me broke completely. This wasn't some tragic misunderstanding. This was war. And then came the final piece of the puzzle, the one that took my rage and gave it direction. Rachel called me, out of the blue. "Hey," she said, cheerful. "We still good for our wedding gift exchange on Sunday?" I blinked. "What? Didn't Lila tell you?" "I suggested we do a little brunch, just the four of us. Exchange something sentimental before the wedding. Like a memory gift or something. I thought it'd be cute." My mouth went dry. "Yeah," I said slowly. "That sounds great. Let me talk to Lila. I'll get back to you." I hung up and turned to Lila, who looked just as confused. "She never mentioned this to me," she said. "I thought you planned something." We both realized the same thing at once. Tyler had set this up. It was the perfect opportunity. A cozy little brunch. A private moment. Just the four of us. And all he needed was for Lila to look uncertain, or for me to look angry, and he could spin another lie. Probably try to play it off like they'd had a moment, and hope Rachel caught on. But now it was our opportunity. We spent that night combing through everything. Every message he'd sent. Every screenshot. Every time he showed up uninvited or crossed the line. We compiled it all. Lila even dug up an old voicemail she'd saved. One where he drunkenly confessed, "If you ever change your mind, I'll be here." We weren't sure what Rachel knew, but she deserved the truth. So I texted her the next morning. "Brunch sounds perfect. Let's do it at that new cafe downtown. Just us." Tyler didn't reply to the group chat for hours. When he finally did, all he said was, "Looking forward to it." And that's where we left it. The plan wasn't fully formed yet, but the wheels were in motion. Tyler didn't know it yet, but brunch was going to be a turning point. For all of us. And when Rachel saw the messages, well, let's just say he wouldn't be attending the wedding. Not as best man, not as a brother, and not as a husband. The night before the brunch, I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop. A half-finished document was open, originally our wedding itinerary. I'd spent weeks piecing it together. Dinner timelines, speech order, seating charts. Now, it just looked like a blueprint of something slowly unraveling. My brother had turned the lead up to our wedding into a chessboard, and I had let him play both sides for too long. Lila had gone to bed early. She was emotionally drained. We both were. But while she slept upstairs, I stayed up, rereading every message Tyler had ever sent her, cataloging his manipulation, and organizing it into a clean, undeniable timeline. I wasn't doing it to be petty. I was doing it to protect what we had left. To protect her. To protect us. I labeled each file by date and content. The last one I titled The Beginning of the End. When I finally shut the laptop and turned out the kitchen light, the silence hit me. It was thick, almost too much. And that's when I realized something I hadn't let myself feel until now. Shame. Not for what Tyler had done, but for how long I'd let him get away with it. I had always believed that family was sacred, that no matter how bad things got, blood was thicker. I told myself I was being mature by letting things slide, that I was choosing peace. But peace had a price, and I'd been paying it for decades without realizing I was the only one handing over anything. That night, I cried. Not loudly. Not the kind of crying you see in movies with fists pounding against walls or heads thrown back in anguish. It was quieter than that. A slow, steady unraveling. I leaned against the kitchen counter, wiped my face with my sleeve, and let myself feel everything I'd been bottling up for years. The memories started rolling in. All the times Mom blamed me for Tyler's mistakes. All the birthdays where he forgot to show up and I made excuses for him. The time I broke up with a girl in college and he hooked up with her a month later. The time Dad tried to discipline him and Mom stepped in, saying, "He's just passionate." The countless second chances. The way he always took and I always gave. And now, he tried to take Lila. But this time he failed. And that failure was going to cost him everything. Brunch was scheduled for 11:30 a.m. The cafe was one of those Instagram-worthy spots with pastel walls, string lights, and tiny plants on every table. It should have been the perfect pre-wedding photo op. Instead, it felt like walking into a silent courtroom. Lila and I arrived early. I'd printed out selected messages and voicemails, each placed neatly in a plain envelope. We ordered coffee, waited in silence. My leg bounced uncontrollably under the table. At 11:28, Rachel walked in. She looked flawless, as always. Peach blouse, gold earrings, a smile that could brighten a room. But the moment her eyes met mine, I saw something flicker behind them. Maybe confusion, maybe concern. Tyler followed a minute later. Sunglasses again, indoors this time. Trying way too hard. He kissed Rachel on the cheek and gave me a smirk like we were in on some inside joke. We made small talk at first. Rachel asked about the florist. Lila told her about the cake tasting. Tyler made some offhand comment about how marriage is just legalized codependency, and Rachel elbowed him playfully. But her laugh didn't quite reach her eyes. Then came the moment. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table to Rachel. "What's this?" she asked, blinking. I looked at Tyler. He froze. "Something you should have seen a long time ago." Rachel glanced between us, then slowly opened it. At first, she skimmed. Then she read more closely. Her eyebrows drew together. She reached the printed messages, screenshots of text from Tyler to Lila, including one particularly disturbing late-night message. "If you just said the word, I'd be gone before sunrise. You know you don't belong with him." Her hands began to shake. Lila spoke, her voice steady. "He's been harassing me for almost a year. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to hurt Spencer. But I can't keep pretending it's okay." Tyler reached forward, trying to grab the papers. "This is taken out of context. She flirted with me first." Rachel recoiled. "Don't touch me." His smile cracked. "Ratch, come on. She's manipulating you. She's always had it out for me. Enough." Her voice cut through the cafe noise like a blade. She looked at me. "Thank you for telling me." Then she stood up. "I need to go." Tyler followed her, sputtering half-formed excuses, but she walked faster. Out the door. Around the corner. Gone. And just like that, brunch was over. We sat there for a while after that. Tyler never came back inside. I don't know where he went. But I do know that was the last time I ever saw him with a wedding ring on his hand. You'd think that would have felt like the moment of triumph. But it didn't. In the days after brunch, I felt hollow. Word got around quickly. Rachel called my mom. And she, of course, blamed me for the fallout. "You humiliated your brother in public," she hissed during our next call. "You broke up a marriage." "No," I said calmly. "He did that. I just turned the lights on." But that didn't stop the storm. Tyler started messaging mutual friends, painting himself as the victim, that I was insecure, controlling, that Lila had led him on, and I'd taken things too far. Some people bought it, others didn't. But even when I was in the right, it still hurt. Losing people you thought were neutral observers. Hearing them say, "It's a family matter, we shouldn't take sides," like silence wasn't its own form of betrayal. Like neutrality didn't have a weight to it. I started pulling back, unfriending people, muting group chats, saying no to invites. I wasn't angry, I was just tired. But Lila? She was a light through all of it. She never wavered. She held my hand through each moment, sent me ridiculous memes when I looked too serious, made our apartment feel like home, even when it felt like the rest of the world was collapsing. We talked a lot in those weeks before the wedding, not just about logistics or guest lists, but about us, about how easily things could have been destroyed if we hadn't trusted each other, about how sometimes the worst moments in life show you the strength of what you've built. And somewhere in that slow healing, I found something else, self-worth. For the first time in my life, I started looking back at everything I'd done, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I had been the steady one, the reliable one, the peacemaker, the fixer, but that didn't make me weak. That made me strong. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since college. I wrote about my dad, about the way he used to talk to me during late-night drives, about how he'd always tell me, "Don't mistake silence for peace." Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the one who needs to be left behind. I started going on morning runs, not to escape, but to move forward. I deleted the wedding itinerary document and built a new one from scratch. Every line felt like a step away from what I'd allowed, and a step toward who I wanted to be. We restructured the wedding party. One of my college friends, Mason, stepped in as best man. Lila's sister took over as maid of honor. We even made a few changes to the guest list. Tyler was no longer invited. Neither was my mom. It wasn't a dramatic announcement, just a quiet line drawn. We mailed them a simple note. "Due to recent events and for the peace of our ceremony, we've decided to move forward without your attendance. We wish you well." That was it. Lila and I stood at the mailbox together, held hands, and dropped it in. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like freedom. And just when I thought things couldn't shift any further, I got a call that changed everything again. It was Rachel, and she had something to show me. Something that would flip the whole story upside down and give me one final, unexpected card to play. Rachel's call came 3 days after brunch. I was sitting in the backyard, watching our dog chew mercilessly on a destroyed tennis ball when my phone buzzed. I hadn't spoken to her since that morning at the cafe. Part of me thought I never would. I imagined she was processing the betrayal in her own way, quietly, privately, like I had done for so long. So when I saw her name on the screen, my stomach clenched. I answered on the second ring. "Spencer," she said, her voice calmer than I expected. "I think we need to talk." I stood up slowly. "Of course. Everything okay?" There was a pause, and then, "I found something. Something you need to see." We agreed to meet at a local park, somewhere neutral. Lila offered to come, but Rachel asked to speak with me alone. "It's not about her," she said. "Not directly." When I arrived, Rachel was already there, sitting at a bench near the pond, a manila folder clutched in her lap. She looked different, sharper somehow. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, no makeup, eyes clear and unreadable. She didn't greet me with a hug this time, just nodded and gestured for me to sit. "I've spent the last few days going through everything," she said. "Emails, bank records, our shared accounts. I needed to understand what was real and what was just lies." I didn't say anything, just let her talk. Rachel opened the folder and slid a few papers across to me. They were printouts, transaction records from a joint savings account I didn't know she and Tyler had. "Notice anything?" she asked. I scanned the page. Multiple withdrawals. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $150 there. Then larger ones. $800, $1,200. Several labeled as business expenses. Others with no notes at all. "I never authorized these," she said. "And when I checked the dates, I realized most of them aligned with the months leading up to your engagement." My brow furrowed. "You think he was spending it on what? Gifts? Hotels?" "Worse," she said. "He was paying someone to spy on Lila." I froze. I found a string of payments to a private investigator based in Boulder. When I called pretending to be Tyler, The guy confirmed he was hired to follow her. Get photos. See if she was cheating on you. My throat went dry. He tried to frame her. Rachel nodded. He told the PI he wanted proof Lila wasn't faithful. But I don't think he ever planned to show you the results. I think he just wanted ammunition in case she rejected him again, or to use it to push her into silence. A slow wave of nausea rolled through me. I had suspected manipulation, but surveillance? He stalked her, I whispered. Rachel nodded grimly. And there's more. She pulled out a second sheet, an email forwarded from her account. I read the header. It was from Tyler, sent to a friend of his named Caleb. Subject line, leverage. The body? If this thing with Lila doesn't pan out, I've got backup. Found some dirt from her college days. Might be enough to shake things up if Spencer goes through with the wedding. I'm not going to let him win again. Not this time. My hands tightened into fists. Not this time. I looked at Rachel. What does that mean, again? Has this happened before? She looked down, lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't want to believe it at first, but yeah. He's always seen you as the one who got the life he was supposed to have. He used to complain about it all the time. Said you were Dad's favorite. That you only got ahead because you played the good boy. I laughed bitterly. He means because I didn't lie and steal? Rachel didn't laugh. He always felt like the world owed him something. And when you proposed to Lila, it broke something in him. He couldn't stand that you got love, that you got loyalty. I leaned back on the bench, winded. The pieces were falling into place, but the puzzle they created was uglier than I'd imagined. I had known Tyler was selfish, petty, entitled. I hadn't known he was dangerous. Rachel reached into the folder one last time and handed me a flash drive. What's this? Voice recordings. I put one of those keychain mics in his car a few months ago. It was supposed to be for safety, in case of break-ins. But he talks to himself. A lot. And he doesn't hold back. I stared at the tiny piece of plastic in my hand like it was radioactive. You're giving me this? I asked. She nodded. He doesn't deserve protection anymore. Not after this. And with that, she stood up and walked away. When I got home, I played the recordings. It took me hours to sift through them. Most were boring, traffic noises, music, the occasional phone call. But then, on a clip labeled 04_17_evening, I heard his voice clearly. She'll come around. They always do. Spencer's too weak to keep her. She wants someone exciting, someone who can take charge. Once she sees what he really is, boring, needy, scared, she'll run. And I'll be right there. In another, from a week before brunch. If this doesn't work, I'll burn it all down. Wedding, job, whatever. He doesn't get to win. Not this time. It was all there. His obsession, his entitlement, his plan. I sat in silence for a long time afterward. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was clear. This wasn't about revenge. This was about ending the cycle. But I wasn't going to scream or throw punches. I wasn't going to send threatening texts or stage some dramatic confrontation. I was going to do what I always did, build something solid, thoughtful, unbreakable. Only this time, I wouldn't be fixing someone else's mess. I'd be making sure Tyler couldn't create another one. The next few days were a flurry of quiet activity. I contacted a lawyer, not because I planned to sue, but because I wanted to understand what protections I could put in place. Tyler had crossed lines I never imagined. I wasn't taking chances anymore. I asked the lawyer about defamation, harassment, emotional distress. He confirmed that with the recordings, the texts, and Rachel's testimony, I could absolutely build a case if needed. I filed a police report, not to press charges yet, but to create a paper trail. I gave them the recordings, the texts, the PI's contact. They took it seriously. Then I contacted our wedding videographer and made a special request that they prepare a private video montage for me. A short clip to be played at the rehearsal dinner. It wouldn't go public. It wouldn't be part of the official wedding reel, but it would contain everything I needed. I edited it myself. 3 minutes long. Clip 1. Tyler at our engagement party, making a toast. Clip 2. The voice recording of him calling me weak and boring. Clip 3. A screenshot of the leverage email. Clip 4. Rachel's voice, quietly stating, "He tried to destroy your relationship." And mine. The final clip? Me, looking into the camera, saying, "I used to think family meant forgiving everything, even betrayal. I don't think that anymore. Sometimes, to protect what matters, you have to close the door and never open it again." I saved it on a flash drive and handed it to Mason, my new best man, with simple instructions. Only play it if Tyler shows up uninvited. He nodded. You really think he'll try? I looked out the window. I think he doesn't know how to lose. The day before the wedding, I got one final message from Tyler. No subject. Just 3 words. You'll regret this. I didn't reply, but I smiled when I read it. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him. He should have regretted ever thinking I was someone he could manipulate. And tomorrow, he'd finally learn what it felt like to be powerless. The morning of the wedding, the sky was clear. No clouds. No wind. The kind of stillness that made everything feel intentional, like even the weather had paused to witness what was about to unfold. Lila and I didn't speak much as we got ready. Not because we were nervous, but because there was an unspoken calm between us. A quiet acknowledgement of everything we'd weathered. Every betrayal, every hard conversation, every moment where the entire structure of our relationship had been tested and had held. Stronger than ever. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my cufflinks, and caught my reflection. Not just the tucks or the hair or the clean shave, but me, my posture, my eyes. I looked ready. For everything. For marriage. For confrontation. For closure. The venue was beautiful. We'd chosen a small vineyard just outside of town. Rows of green vines stretched toward the horizon, sunlight catching on the leaves like gold. Guests began arriving early, laughing, greeting each other, taking photos in front of the flower arch. I moved through the crowd with a kind of floaty detachment, half listening to congratulations, half focused on the one thing I knew was coming. Because even though Tyler hadn't RSVP'd, I knew he'd show. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for 5 p.m., a casual pre-wedding gathering of just the closest family and friends. We'd rented out a private room at a nearby bistro, low lighting, jazz in the background, candles flickering on every table. It was everything Lila wanted, warm, intimate, meaningful. And it was the perfect stage. Mason had the flash drive in his inner jacket pocket. He'd tested the projector twice already. He gave me a subtle nod when I walked in. Everything was in place. The only variable was Tyler. Sure enough, at 5:47 p.m., he arrived. Uninvited. He strolled in wearing a slim black suit. No tie, sunglasses on despite being indoors. Like he thought he was the villain in some Netflix drama. A few heads turned. The room went still. I saw Lila's hand tighten around her champagne flute. Rachel, who'd bravely chosen to attend, sat 2 tables away and didn't even look up. Tyler headed straight for me. Spence, he said smoothly, clapping me on the shoulder. Heard the party couldn't start without me. Actually, I said calmly, it's just about to end. Before he could respond, Mason stepped forward, smiling like a host at a fundraiser. If I could get everyone's attention for a moment, he said, raising his glass. Before we dig into dinner, Spencer asked me to share a little something. A short video. Just a few memories. Lila rose quietly and walked over to me. We stood side by side as Mason connected the flash drive to the projector. The screen flickered to life. It started with laughter, clips from our engagement party, birthday celebrations, goofy moments with our dog. A few guests clapped softly, some let out nostalgic sighs. Tyler smirked, arms crossed. Then came the second half. His smirk faded instantly. His voice filled the room. That unmistakable recording from the car. She'll come around. They always do. Spencer's too weak to keep her. People began turning, whispering. Another clip. The email. The one he sent to Caleb. Leverage. The room shifted. Then Rachel's voice. He tried to destroy your relationship. And mine. And finally, my face on screen. Calm. Resolved. Sometimes, to protect what matters, you have to close the door and never open it again. Silence. The lights came back on. Mason stepped away. No one clapped. No one spoke. I turned to Tyler. His face was frozen. Pale. Caught between rage and fear. His confidence cracked like glass under pressure. You did this, he hissed at me. You set me up? No, I said. You did this. I just stopped covering for you. He looked around, searching for allies. None came. My mom wasn't there. She'd declined the invitation. Said she couldn't support a wedding built on division. Fine by me. Aunt Karen was staring at him with her mouth half open. Even his former groomsmen, guys he used to party with, wouldn't meet his eye. Rachel stood up slowly. I filed for divorce this morning, she said, her voice clear. The paperwork's already at your office. You'll find your stuff packed by the end of the weekend. Tyler's mouth opened, but no words came out. He took a shaky step toward her. Ratch, come on. You're not going to. I'm done, Tyler, she said, backing away. I gave you every chance to be decent. But you're a parasite, and I'm not feeding you anymore. Then she turned to me and Lila, gave a small nod, and walked out. Tyler stood there, isolated, the center of a storm he'd created with no umbrella left. I'll ruin you, he said quietly. No, I replied. You already did that to yourself. Security, who Mason had discreetly arranged ahead of time, walked over and placed a gentle but firm hand on Tyler's shoulder. Time to go, sir. He didn't fight it, just yanked his arm away, turned, and stormed out. No more words. No more grand speeches. Just the click of the door closing behind him. That was the last time I saw him. The wedding the next day was perfect. The vineyard glowed under the afternoon sun. The music floated through the air like a hymn. And Lila walked down the aisle like she had stars in her eyes and nothing could touch her. When we exchanged vows, mine cracked with emotion. But I didn't care, because I meant every word. I vowed to never let fear silence me again, I said, and to protect what we've built, even if it means walking away from people I once called family. She squeezed my hand so tightly I thought I might break. But I didn't. I just stood taller. After the ceremony, guests kept coming up to us saying it was the most heartfelt wedding they'd ever seen. There were tears, laughter. Even the DJ cried at one point. And somewhere during the reception, I found myself standing alone again, watching Lila dance with her father. The same spot I'd stood in before this whole mess began. Only this time, I didn't feel hollow. I felt whole, complete. Not because I got revenge, but because I took my life back. Rachel and I still talk. She's doing well, moved to a new apartment, started therapy, even adopted a cat. She once joked that Tyler did her a favor by blowing everything up. I wouldn't have had the strength to walk away, she admitted. But you did, and that gave me mine. As for my mother, we're distant. She sends a birthday card once a year. No return address. No apology. I've stopped expecting one. Some losses are necessary. Tyler never responded to the police inquiry. The PI eventually turned over his side of things, and while nothing escalated legally, the record is there, waiting, if he ever tries anything again. But I don't think he will. Because for the first time in his life, someone didn't fold under his pressure. Someone stood up and told the truth, and everyone saw him for who he really was. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Lila and I sat on the back porch, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. She reached over, took my hand, and said, "Do you think he'll ever apologize?" I looked out across the yard, smiled faintly, and said, "I don't need him to. Because the door is shut. The past is behind us, and I'm done giving power to people who never deserved it." I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and let the peace settle in. And for the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like victory.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe for new content.